Hey guys, welcome back to The Long Game. This is a podcast about consistency, patience, and building a life that compounds over time. No hacks, no 30-day transformations. And again, this is not the new year, new me. This is about outdoor sports, everyday health, and staying healthy and active for decades and not just a year or a season. And I'm your host, Mark Alfaro, and today again, I'm joined by my good friend, Eric Chrisman, owner, founder, and race director of the Elevation Culture Race Series. So this series, again, is sponsored by our friends at Base Kamp. If you haven't heard of Base Kamp, this company specializes in Filipino-inspired freeze-dried camp food, and you're going to have to try their arroz caldo and champurrado oats on your next outdoor adventure. Just so happens that today's guest knows a lot about that. He's someone who's built a career on this intersection of food and culture, community, and now outdoor adventures. Phillip Esteban is a San Diego chef, entrepreneur, and outdoorsman whose work has helped to create just greater visibility for Filipino American culture through food primarily. He's the founder of Open Gym Hospitality, which includes all of these really cool concepts like white rice and wildflower. And he's been recognized as San Diego's best chef, eater change maker of the year, and a winner on Food Network's Chopped. But Philip's story doesn't stop in the kitchen. We'll dive into all that as we get into this podcast. But we're also going to talk about what it takes to build these meaningful adventures, Phil's passion for chasing big mountain goals. So Phil, welcome to The Long Game. Now, you've built this career around food and community and culture, and I'm really excited to talk to you about those moments where the worlds came together and how the craving, and I won't ruin it for our listeners, but how this craving for one of your favorite Filipino foods after summiting one of your mountains became the start of Base Kamp Meals. So Phil, please bring us into your story.
Wow, thanks, Mark and Eric, for having me. That was a great introduction. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have to go into the cheffery side. I think you kind of like painted the picture there. But I've just been kind of very active in the outdoors. I kind of do a lot of different things from cycling to mountain biking, backpacking, hiking, climbing, mountaineering, alpinist. You name it, I've probably done it. For me, creating white rice was about representation, right? So when I went to culinary school, I'm about to age myself, like 25 years ago, it's a white male dominated industry. And for myself in culinary school, I had a ton of great mentors, but no one looked like me, right? And so I did what everyone else was cooking, like modern American cuisine. And it's just something that I like followed throughout my whole career. And I had this one mentor who passed away, but his name is Anthony Sensei. And he'd always tell me, he'd see me at events and whatnot. And I was already kind of starting to create a name for myself. But he'd always like whisper in my ear. He's like, "Chef, what are you doing? Cook Filipino food." And it just never like kind of attached, and like, because growing up Phil Am, you kind of wanted to just be more American, right? But then there became this cycle of reclaiming your culture and identity. And through that process, I started to learn more about Filipino culture, about my own heritage. I started to learn the language more. My facet was like learning through food, and which, then started White Rice. That happened like right before the pandemic. It was a platform for us to, we partnered with World Central Kitchen. We fed over 350,000 families in San Diego through that process. That's probably a whole nother podcast in itself. And, that's really where the Filipino side of cooking started to really, grow with me and develop like what I wanted to create. And then the intersection was someone as an avid outdoors person that I was always told to like try and create something in the outdoors. That way you could just be out there more, right? And like I was mentioning earlier, I didn't want to do anything like haul all this gear, cooking equipment, and cook for people out there. That just wasn't my end goal, right? It's like I didn't want to bring the restaurant to the outdoors,
Mm.
and then that means I have to do the work, right? And so I was coming off Mount Baker, and a buddy of mine asked me what I wanted to eat once we got back to base camp, right? Because we were extremely blanc. I was up there with my cousin Rad, and he got pretty sick. So, like, right below the summit. So he just had to turn around. We pushed up to the top, came back down, and we were just completely gassed, right? 9,000 feet, no tree line, no shade. You're just burning. And I said I wanted arroz caldo. We got back to base camp, and I had like this chicken Alfredo penne pasta. And for me, it wasn't comforting, right? When you're gone and you're out there detached from the world, like I wanted something that reminded me of home, something reminiscent, comforting. And so it just in that moment was, okay, this is something I could make. I could just make actually freeze dried meals. Went down to Seattle, checked all the different stores there, REI headquarters, if there was any Filipino freeze dry in the world, and turned out there wasn't. Got back home, checked with my lawyer. She's like, you got to do this. There's zero in the world. So we quickly like trademarked it. Was like actually the first thing I did was like trademarked it right away, and then started to get to work over a course of a month, testing, freeze drying. I was doing from dehydrated at first to freeze drying to one pot recipes to individual recipes, so you can just blend it. And within a month, I kind of had my first sample made, and that was it. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I later found out much more, not necessarily how difficult it is, but being in a restaurant world and working within a restaurant space and operational, like mastered that. And still a lot of room to grow, right? But this is within the food space called CPG, consumer packaged goods. But it's adjacent to the food space, but a whole new language that I am now trying to learn and, as you said, get to the summit.
Philip, that's an absolutely amazing story. When I hear other entrepreneurs speak about their passions and I see them light up, I'm like, man, that makes me want to start so many more businesses, right? Like that fire you got, right? Like this, it's like a marrying of passions, right? Like you married your passion for adventure with cooking, and you created something that didn't exist. And I'm very much a student of that as well. And for me, it's like, how did you grow up to be able to take those passions and say, you know what, I want to do something with this. I don't care about the no's. I don't care about who tells me, it's not possible. When you grew up, was there mentors? Was there anybody you looked up to that?
Yeah, it's great that you asked that. Just a few days ago, I was talking with Mark. You actually grew up with him, and we were kind of just talking about that, right? Like how does things in your life prepare you for like the things that you want to create and do? And I think there's just this idea of like 20-year-old Phil, to evolve to 25-year-old Phil. It's like you got to let some of those things go, right? So 25-year-old Phil doesn't need 20-year-old. And then you keep going and you learn and you challenge yourself. You think I could remember so many different mentors growing up that shaped my life that I didn't know that like had an effect on me, right? I was in a lot of ROTC programs growing up, just like a wild adolescent, and where, we were competing at the highest level, and, Morris High School getting like 4th place in the nation for ROTC for what we were doing, and it was just, we were like 14-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, like what were we doing, but you don't realize that doing hard things like prepare you to take on like this mental capacity physically and mentally, right? And so the love for food was, primarily with my grandmother, cooking with her. I was your kind of typical Filipino Asian American where you got to do a safe job, and so I was going to go in the medical field, but dropped out, went to culinary school. So I think that kind of the no fear was kind of already instilled to me in a young age, to where I didn't know I was going to do business, and that's far from like what my degree actually is. But you just kind of learn along the way, and you have great mentors, right? Like, and you have to be a great mentee as well, right? You got to be a student of the game. You got to be able to soak everything up and learn, because a lot of times too, they're not going to hand it to you and teach it to you. You have to be observant. You have to ask questions. You have to be involved. And you have to be patient, right? Because like when I was the research and development chef for Consortium Holdings here in San Diego, a lot of I would speak at culinary schools, and they would just be like, "I want your job." And I'm like, I look young, but this was like 20 years in the making to get to this point. You can't just come out of culinary school and say, "Oh, I went to culinary school, I'm a chef." No, you're a cook. You know, it's it's going to take years for you to develop to, because there's this saying like to be a chef, it's a given you already know how to cook, right? You wouldn't be called a chef if you don't know how to cook. But what really makes a chef is, can you run a successful business?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think that's where the big difference is. There's tons of people that could cook, home cooks, professional chefs, all types.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that you said, Phil, and the first one I want to start with is how you talk about your grandma, right? And being raised in a household, in a Filipino household, where, as you were talking about it, I could smell the aromas of what my grandmother would be cooking at this time of the day, right? Or even a little bit earlier. So my grandfather and my grandmother raised me. My mom was a nurse. My dad was in the Navy. So my dad would be away for 6 months at a time. My mom at the time, for a good portion of my growing up, would have to like work in LA because she was still trying to pursue, she was already a nurse. She had been a nurse since she was 18 years old in the Philippines, or in Australia, via the University of the Philippines. They had a kind of a foreign exchange program there. But when she landed in the United States, her credentials weren't valid, right? And so she'd have to go to LA for a year, or for a long amount of time. And so my grandparents raised me, and as you're talking about the food, I could smell and taste my grandmother's food. I could smell the burnt coffee, that my grandfather would drink in the morning. And the other thing that it makes me think about is what you were saying about how, in the Filipino culture, we're kind of raised to think, you've got to be a nurse or somebody in the medical field, or an engineer, or, just kind of like your basic standard professions, right? But we are raised by entrepreneurs. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He was a mechanic, but what he would do is he would take a car that would be completely totaled, right? He would fix it and then sell it. And he did that 3 to 4 times a month out of our garage, right? He was an entrepreneur. My grandmother was the homemaker, right? And she was a chef. And so, I look back on it now and I'm like, they were telling us one thing, but we were seeing another thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I completely agree with you. I mean, them coming here, they came as very creatives, right? In the Philippines, you gotta make things out of nothing to survive, right? And so when they came here, I think it was this idea of, the journey it took them to get here, and the work that they put in, that not necessarily like your typical like Asian American, but like what they wanted was a safe job, something that like could provide, get a good job, go to college, provide for your family, and that was it. There was nothing creative anymore about it, right? And so our generation kind of had to break the mold, and then now our children get to do something a little bit more creative, I guess,
Yeah,
or
for sure.
adventurous, right?
For sure. And my youngest one, Noah, he wants to be a chef. So he started working for the Red Oven Pizza catering company. And so that's given him a little bit of experience. I want to get him more experience before I send him over to you, because I know like you run a tough kitchen. But with that being said, going back to connecting, your kitchen and your passion for chasing these outdoor adventures, like climbing up mountains, they're both pretty intense environments, right? Like what are some of the similarities that you kind of can tell, our listeners about being in a kitchen, and how that translates to the mountains and vice versa, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with leadership, right? And same thing like a kitchen. It's like, jokingly we call it like, it's like a pirate ship, right? Everyone comes from so many different walks of life.
Yeah.
You get to like, this is their second career. This is their, newfound career. You have influencers on, media. You have celebrity chefs. You have so many different facets in food now. And they come from so many different walks of life, right? Ex-military, people that just kind of fell into cooking. But same thing for the outdoors, right? It's everyone else also comes from different walks of life, different life experiences. And it is leadership, right? And there's a book that I read to all my young sous chefs when they first get promoted. We go chapter by chapter each week. It's the 31 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John C. Maxwell.
Yeah.
And he kind of talks about, right, like, leadership is really your ability to guide like men and women to a common goal, right? And just like in a kitchen, it's more of an everyday type of goal, right? Like get through service, kill it, provide the most excellent service that you can. But for the outdoors, it's also a team dynamic, but leadership of trying to reach this goal, this summit or this multi-pitch or whatever it is that you're doing. And you do have to work as a team and have great communication and trust to be able to accomplish those goals, or you get skunked, right? Or, on the other end, you get hurt, so there's just so many layers that I've had to learn in the outdoors. Like we have strict rules with our team. Like if we go out, it's like one person says, no, like this is not it. We turn around, we're not leaving anything behind, and you just have these like rules and guidelines, and it plays into regular day life as well, right?
Yeah.
Creating boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you said about that. And when you were talking about Radcliffe having the altitude sickness or not feeling well, that goes back all the way to my very first episode. A few of them were dealing with altitude sickness as they were summiting Kilimanjaro, but they were like, hey, we're doing this together. And it also reminds me of the things that Eric and I have done, and Eric's done with a bunch of his friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great tie-in as well, right? Altitude. Part of the meals with Base Kamp is, a guide friend of mine, Ben with Golden State Guiding. We were climbing Crystal Crag and Treasure Peak, and I was just kind of chatting with him. I was like, hey, like, how do you adjust to altitude?
Mm-hmm.
Like the fast, I mean, outside of just being in elevation, right? In multiple days.
Right.
But one thing that I learned about food is, when you go to said store to go buy your camp meals, most people will go right to the shelves and they're looking at protein, right? Which is the one with the highest protein? Protein is good for muscle recovery.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need that in the early stages of your expedition. You need that, like if you're on a 3 or 5 day, you're looking for protein on day 3, day 5, on the muscle recovery on the way out. And the way that your body works, it 3 stages. It burns calories first, right? Yep. Carbohydrates,
right,
and then protein. So you have to like think of it in that, right? So, obviously looking at the meals, highest calories, and then carb. How are you going to supplement that? And then protein towards the end. So, how do you? It's not just about yes, physically getting to the summit and back, but how do you maintain your energy levels, your altitude, all these different things, right? Like we did Mont Blanc in Chamonix last July.
Awesome.
One day, 9,000 calories. Like, one meal is not going to do that. So you're just, So,
Eric, what are your thoughts, man?
But the thing that fascinates me, Phillip, is being able to listen to a leader, and I love to use that word. I talked about it a lot this week with a lot of people, and it's one of those things where, are you born with it? Have you earned it? Right? Like how is it that you accomplish this leadership? And for you, it sounds like you're mastering it, right? But we never do. But I'm more interested in, though, how do you keep yourself motivated? You motivate your team. You're there creating these processes, getting to the summit, point A to point B. But how do you do that for yourself? How do you show up every day?
Yeah, well, I have 3 restaurants, family, kids, one going to college in like 2 weeks, and then trying to build Base Kamp as well, and then on top of it, trying to be out there to do all those activities. And a friend of mine that he always checks in with me. He was always like, how are you doing, Phil? Like because he knows that there's a lot going on with work and the Base Kamp, just life in general. And when I was with him a couple of days ago, in person, he was like, "Hey, I want you to know that when I ask you how are you doing, like, yeah, are you doing everything to take care of yourself? It's not like are you doing taking care of the business."
Mm.
He was like, "I want you to know I'm asking you like, are you doing those things like the outdoors? Are you getting out there?" Right? And I think for me, it's like separating from those things to be able to kind of like refill the cup. Like I don't I can't go on a expedition climb every single month. So during that time away, it allows me to like I can't wait to get back out there. And then in order to get that goal, you still have to train. You can't just hop on the bike and all of a sudden let me do an Ironman. It's like months in, and it's discipline ultimately, right? Like I think for anyone, it is always discipline. Like, do I have to wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning certain days to train? Most people would be like, nah, I'm good. But if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do to prepare for the things that you love, right? So it's not even a sacrifice at all. You have to learn discipline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Mark, I'm sure your head is spinning because these are the things that we talk about every single week. And it's the question that none of us can answer, but I think collectively, these are the things that Philip's talking about that is going to help somebody out there that's an entrepreneur or somebody that has all these things going on in their life. We both do, but we're still trying to get out there and fill our cup. It's fascinating that we all kind of arrive at the same problem. It's crazy,
Mhm.
right? And then talk about the different ways that we can do this, but ultimately it's kind of the same thing. You have to sacrifice, right? You have to dream, you have to work hard. And those are the simple things, right? I know Mark is amazing at this. He talks about getting on the treadmill at 9, 10 o'clock at night when the life happened. I don't know. I love when people say this stuff because right now I'm going to go for a run right after this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you talk about the preparation for something. You kind of mentioned Ironman, and I've mentioned this before. It's there are people that do very minimal training and will do an Ironman, and they might do well. Very few and far between. But what I know is that you can be the most prepared, right, in an expedition climb or in an Ironman, and the what still hits the fan, right? And
Yeah.
when chaos does hit you, you go back, right, to the way that you prepared and what you did during your training. And if you're not one of those people that did the training, you don't have anything to reference, right? You don't have anything to go back to.
Mhm.
So tell us about a time where you kind of like had to pull something from, either something that you learned, and we all learn by messing up, right? And you had to kind of pull that into like something that was in your face like that day, whether it was in the kitchen or on a climb where you're like, damn, like I've got to figure this out like right now, right? Like what
Yeah.
did you do?
I mean, I'll give two examples. One in the kitchen, and then like kind of one in like the training outdoor side of it. But in the kitchen, it was probably the biggest one was the pandemic, right? Like when the world stopped, right? There was a post that I saw. It was in Spanish, but it read that like this isn't the time to hang up the apron. This is a time to serve your people. To help your community. And so the thing that I quickly realized was one is that that fishermen were still fishing and farmers were still farming, right? It didn't stop the world from going. It just stopped from people interacting in space and all that, right? And so, but the food insecure and people were still in need of help. So with my connections through like all the fishermen, different farmers, we created a program called Fish to Families that like we bought fish, right? Fish is high in protein. We bought fish at $4 a pound or less. You go to your normal fish market, that thing is like 12,
Yeah.
$14 a pound right now. And then farmers were still farming, but produce was going bad. So rather than calling it waste, I called it like fish recovery or produce recovery. It's sometimes just changing that word changes like the mindset of it.
Right.
And so we were able to, create these meals while partnering and receiving, like, we were writing grants. I never thought I'd write grants in my life,
Wow.
working with the San Diego Foundation, NOAA Fishery, UCSD, the Monterey Bay Fishery to get seafood, basically get grains, produce, create a well, balanced meal, and then feed families, right? And that was just like a challenge in itself because, like, how do we get all these resources together into a kitchen, produce the meals, and then disperse that within the community? And so we ended up partnering with like 12 nonprofits all around San Diego to
Amazing.
do like pickup meals, right?
Yeah.
And then, in the outdoors, there's always like a different over thing that you're gonna physically, but I think the mental part, right? Like, as much it is to prepare yourself physically for an expedition, preparing your mind mentally, like that alone could push you through so many walls, right? I'm sure we've all experienced it where your body's starting to, like the acid buildup, whatever it is, and your mind is just like, okay, I'm ready to quit. But if you could just tell yourself and prepare yourself through the time of, like, you're about to go through something extremely difficult and your body's going to want to give out, but if your mind keeps going, your body's going to follow along, right? And I'm sure we've been through that quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I think about, my career and how some of the things that I've done, either like an Ironman or just doing like outdoor stuff, right, has translated into my professional life. And it's funny because we just had some consultants in at work. Somebody was like, "Hey, did you know Mark has a podcast?" And so one of the guys who was flying in from Georgia was like, "Oh, tell me about it, man. Like, what's this podcast about?" And then we started talking about how he had done a 50K, and that's kind of where he stopped, but he's thinking about doing something bigger. Do you ever have conversations with other chefs or other people that you're in community with, and have they ever said anything like, "Hey, like, I want to climb a mountain with you," or have you ever had one of those types of conversations?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it goes on both sides, right? Like, people will say or comment, like, why are you risking too much? You have businesses, you got family. Like, why are you, that stuff is crazy. Don't even do that. And then you have the other ones that are like, I've always wanted to try that. Next time you go, and like, I'll create them a pack list and be like, hey, these are kind of like the basic needs that you'd have to get started. And the other great ones are just people that start with like hiking and they're just avid hikers or backpackers, and they're like, hey, I want to transition into alpine or alpine climbing. And it's like, you're already there from a physical standpoint. Now you just got to like accrue the techniques. And it's tough, right? Because back in the day, the outdoors was a very, like, you would go and learn from friends that were taught by other people, right? So it's like a skill. Like, you get taught by one person and then you teach the next person, the next person. Now there's guiding companies and you're paying thousands of dollars. So it's not as accessible as it used to be, I think. Because who has all the money to get these certifications and take these extra classes?
Yeah,
When
right.
before it would just be, outdoors is go climb, right? Well, do it safely, but go climb. Yeah. And so, but it comes around a lot, where at least once a week. I saw someone at the restaurant yesterday and he was like full on like Montbell and like Arc'teryx hat. And I was like,
There you go.
I was like, hey, like, I just want to ask you a question. Like, do you go to the outdoors? Do you climb or hike? And his honest answer was like, honestly, I just love the brands and it feels comfy.
Yeah.
So that's why he wears it. But he also said he does like backpacking and stuff like that. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Eric's exposed me to a bunch of different brands over the time that I've known him, just in outdoor brands like Muir. We were talking about Muir Energy, and we were talking about it before we jumped on the podcast. And I remember like first tasting Muir, and obviously they've gotten, better and better with their product and their packaging. Where do you kind of see Base Kamp evolving? I shouldn't even ask the question because I'm sure you're already thinking of the next thing. But maybe you
Well,
can.
I mean, I already know where you're going, so I'll just go right into it. I mean, there's some things that I can't say yet until it like fully announces.
Yeah.
But we are going to expand the line from not just Filipino food, but Asian food in general. So our caldo, we've tested and have a sundubu jjigae, so like a kimchi tofu stew, and then a beef pho. So those are going to be the first three that we're going to launch. I've also been working on like a Thai basil beef, so like ground beef, bell peppers, onions, and then like minute rice. So when you cook it up, it's just kind of ready to go. So kind of really exploring that side of things. I'm also talking with white label brands on like tin seafood. And I know that's kind of already blowing up. Patagonia has like a super great line of things as well, but I wanted to do like, first Filipino ones, but expand it more to like, like if you take kare kare sauce, but put it on like on a white fish, like a steamed white fish inside of a tin can, so like a peanut sauce. Yeah.
Oh my
Just
God.
exploring all these things. And then in the next 2 weeks, we'll be launching our Kickstarter. It's a new challenge. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going right through it,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I've dipped my toe in entrepreneurship. I own a gym, and that was hard. But I've seen other entrepreneurs like Eric, for instance. I remember those days, Eric, where we were in that building in North Park, right? And I get a call from you. You're like, "Hey, dude, I got like 300 medals I need to put together. Look, can you come over and help?" And we're like gluing and like all by hand, dude, like painting all by hand. And to some extent, there is still a little bit of that, right, Eric? But I'm like you building your company from scratch, like as Phil was kind of talking about pulling all these like different sources together and coordinating, that there is a starting point, and that's I feel like is such a leadership quality is just starting, right? Starting and then pulling all those people together, making sure that everybody understands the goal, right? And the mission, and then making sure that people are aligned like throughout, not just at the start, but throughout the life of that business, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many facets here with starting a business. And I think when people ask for advice, like, how do I start a business? I have this idea. Mark, we talk about this, and it's like, you don't know what you don't know. The hardest thing for entrepreneurs to do is ask for help. Or it's, yes, we can learn on our own. The internet's got so many things now that we can just go and pull up. But I really truly believe it's hearing the individuals that have been there and done that, like yourself, Philip, where it's like, all right, I've taken some of these nuggets that he's told me and let me go and try to decipher this, right? So what would you give inspiring entrepreneurs advice with how do they start? So where do you find these ideas? Do you talk to individuals? Is there an incubator program? Like, where does this stuff come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on some of those great things, right? It's like, starting is really the hardest part, right? I think a lot of people have a fear of failure, right? And I think part of entrepreneurship is like your ability to know that you are going to fail. But then, like, I've had also businesses closed, locations closed.
Mm-hmm.
But you could look at it as like a closure, and then people like kind of take it personal. But you could just look at it as like an evolution. And constantly you have to evolve, right? And your business has to evolve. It can't stay the same forever. And I think asking for help is a big hurdle for a lot of people. But I think there's even a power to understand that, like, when you put yourself into a corner, there's only one way out, and it's through, right? And I think there's a lot of power in that, to just be able to, like, it isn't like, that's the part with business, and I'm sure you both could understand, like, if you don't do something, it does not move. It doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And so you do have to every day show up, every day take care of the things that you have to take care of. There's only one way to go. And once you understand that, that's when people start creating more business. You get that entrepreneur bug, and you're like, okay, I've figured this out, at least to a degree, of what does it take to create the next thing. And then I'd say for me is, I don't take too much inspiration online. a good creative friend. Have you heard of Wayne and Kennedy up in Portland? It's they're the brand agency like behind Nike forever.
Wow. Okay.
But they have this kind of an incubator program called WK12. So, basically anyone in the world could apply, and you get to be part of this cohort on like, I think it's in person or online, but different, like marketing, branding, and you're part of this cohort WK12.1, and then the first 12 chooses the next 12, and then the next 12 chooses the next each year. And a good buddy of mine that was through that program, he would always just challenge me as I was developing my product, developing like as a young chef, and he'd always just give me like little nuggets. So I think part of it is finding mentors, finding other creatives that will also guide you, right? And challenge you, right? You're not going to find creativity on the internet. You got to go out there and see it and feel it, right? Like I was wrapping my head around for years of how to connect the outdoors. It took me to be on Mount Baker coming off to be able to ideate it, So
Man, that is so awesome. That is so awesome. I know we talked a little bit about REI's incubator program offline, and then Phil, you and I went into it a little bit more. But I think last week when we were talking, could you tell us a little bit more about the REI incubator program? You kind of went through it a little fast. Maybe there are people out there that may have never heard of it.
Yeah, so I guess it started with May of 2026. I was invited to do a call with the REI, the REI brand and their research and development department of the like REI branded product that they make for AAPI month. So, I went on as an outdoors person as a Asian American. So I was kind of talking, it was a 30-minute Zoom call, just kind of presenting to the team of the things I've done. And then kind of at the last moment, like I brought out one of my Base Kamp meals and kind of talked about it. And one of the main 3D CAD guys, his name is Todd. He's Filipino American, and he kind of like jumped on the screen. He's like, I've never seen Filipino food in the outdoors. This is amazing. So the next month happened, I get a message saying the Embark program opened up for applications. And I didn't know too much about it. I was told a little bit about it through like some of the REI contacts. And it's an incubator for people of color to bring their products to the outdoors, right? And so it was something like, I think like 2,000 applicants. And it is like kind of narrowed it down. You go through interview processes, you talk about your business and what you're creating, your vision, right? Like, and it was end of June when they told me like I got into the final round, like the final, I had a 50-50 chance to get in. Mm-hmm. And it was actually while I was in Mont Blanc in July when I found out that I got into the program. So there's 20 of us in the cohort. At that point, it was the 4th year they've done it. The previous 3, because of pandemic, met online. But we were the first cohort to meet in person for orientation. So we flew up to Seattle and went to the headquarters. Obviously, the first activity we did was go on a hike together. And it was a 3-month-long program after that, online. 3 months, but we were meeting like 4 or 5 times a week, Monday through Friday, pretty much, and taking 2 to 3 hour classes. And they were teaching everything from brand development, right? Because my early pitch for Base Kamp was kind of like, it's for anyone, right? It's for car camping, family camping, mountaineers, alpinists. And I joke like doomsday people, it's for everyone. And one of the co-founders, and she was like, Phil, you need to select one because it's a target audience. She's like, if it's for alpinists, it's for alpinists. Let other people figure out how they'll fit it into their life. Let them do that. They'll do it themselves. That way your brand and who you're speaking to, it's not messy. It's not muddied up. The message is direct. And so, I mean, they gave so much experience. It's amazing to go through the program, to meet these amazing people and continually evolve and grow together, right? There's so many brands I've connected with now, and seeing how they navigate and move within the space, but also the resources. I mean, it's like a Rolodex of anyone and everyone in the outdoor
Yeah,
space, right?
that's very
Like
cool.
to give you answers, to help guide you. Other freeze dry meal companies, like I've gotten so far along with what they've paved the way, and they've just been like, here's a contact, here's who you need to talk to in China, here's the packaging company. I mean, it's been just so amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. And probably a lot like you, they all come from different walks of life, right?
Mhm.
Different professions. I mean, like yours just so happen to be very adjacent to what you do as a professional, but there are people that are doing, other things that are like outside of the thing that they're creating. Like I'm a finance person, right? But I love the outdoors. I'm a big cyclist, and there's an idea that I've kind of like been playing with in my head, very specific to cycling, and I'm actually interested in getting into this program. That's very cool.
Yeah. I think you definitely have to sign up June of 2027.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, once you're in forever. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I know you know, there is that traditional kind of process, right? To get from, you're like getting out of high school into college and then becoming a professional. And my daughter and Noah, I feel like he's more of an entrepreneur. I feel like this is kind of the route that he'll probably be taking, and I'm not worried, at all, because I've seen people like you and Eric and other people like my old business partner Joe. Like all of you guys are very successful as entrepreneurs, and if you were to kind of like pull out some of those qualities that we just talked about, what's one, two things that you can tell some of those people out there that are aspiring entrepreneurs, right? Like, these are the things that you got to get really good at. Not specifically, about like the profession that you're in, obviously, but what are some of the things that they have to really be good at to chase those like big goals?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I again, just the serendipitous of having certain conversations within this week that kind of like helped shape out this conversation. But it's like, one of the top things that came to my mind was just like grit, right? Like
Yeah,
it's like a very like uncommonly used word, but like just the moments where you need to like, you got to grind your teeth and just like buckle down, right? There's certain things that the world has become so easy. Everything is like a silver platter. Everyone wants things handed to them, but no one has like the grit to grind it out. And it's not grinded out when it's like good, right? Because everyone's going to be happy when it's good. Instagram is good because it's highlights. No one's like, where's the Instagram of all the failures?
right.
Where's all the bad stuff? No one has that, right? And so it's can you find that like enjoyment or purpose when things are tough, right? When things aren't going your way, and do you have the grit to get through it? And I think for me, it's just one of those, something that I look at internally all the time. Like, because with a restaurant space, it's in the moment. People buy food, they eat food, they have an opinion, and you either hope they're great or you try and fix it on a guest recovery. And it happens on a daily basis, let alone you're talking about staff, labor, city. Doing business in California is very difficult for any business, not just for restaurants. And to want to keep going, like that term, what masochist, where you just love pain. It's like those are chefs, and I think that also helped me with kind of becoming an entrepreneur. Right? Is you gotta love the pain, you gotta have the grit, you gotta be able to go through it.
Yeah.
No, I just want to echo that sentiment of California. But again, we're all positive people.
Yeah,
Has nothing to do with that. We are not political. Trust me, it just is difficult in certain places to own a business, and that is one of them. Trust me.
yeah,
But no, I mean the word that you said, and it's funny. It used to be a brand, no fear,
But
and I
yeah,
love that. Was actually one of my, every year I pick like this phrase or word that I'm going to, an affirmation, and it was actually no fear. And I truly believe that you're correct in regards to, you can't get inside your head. You can't not believe in yourself if others don't. Like these barriers that we all look at and stare at when we're trying to start a business or have an idea. And that's the reason for paralysis. People don't want to start because they see all these barriers in front of them. It's like, how can I ever do that? Whether that be financial. I mean, I know when I started, I couldn't get $1 from the banks. I mean, I maxed out my last credit card to start my business. I mean, those are the things, right, that we got to do to sacrifice to chase those dreams. And guess what? I always thought that if I failed, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Like, I can start again, right?
Yeah. You could, and that's the beauty of it, right? Is that you can fail and then start again if you want to, or you don't have to. Like, it's all good. I think even the idea of it too is that you don't also have to start a business, right? For the listeners out there, right? It's like entrepreneurship is not for everyone. You could still be an avid outdoors and just, procure the products. Be a supporter of the products or the events.
Yeah.
But if you're out there wanting to start something, it's really, what is the North Star of the business? Like, what is it that you're trying to create? And right. And like, everything has a story, right? There's outdoor food is such a saturated market as well. But how do you separate yourself from what everyone else is doing, right? And I think it's more important now where everyone spends their dollar, right? Like, it's so valuable now, and it's about the messaging of the brand, who you're speaking to, and the consumers look at that and they look at like who you align with, right? Because it's important where that dollar's going and where they want to spend it, right? And if you want to grow your business, like, you have to be in tune with all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey man, I know you got to run, but I do have a couple of last questions for you. One of them is, what's the next thing, right? I know you're just coming off of an injury and you're done with rehab. We didn't even get into that story. That's another podcast.
Yeah.
You're done with rehabbing your injury. What's the next thing?
Yeah, like adventure-wise, I'd say adventure-wise, let's see, September. So through the REI program, once a year, they bring all the founders back together. So kind of like it's called like the Founders Summit. So there's like 70 of us going. REI rented out Snow Peak, Long Beach. So out like coastal Oregon. It's that Snow Peak campsite where you could test all their gear, then buy it at the end.
Very
which is a great business model.
Can you bring a guest?
Yeah, I know, right? Plus ones. But yeah, so we'll be there with all the other founders. I'll have some like climbing expeditions there. October, climbing. There's the 4 highest peaks in Mexico, the 3rd and the 4th. So I'm climbing that in October. And then I'm thinking about doing a sprint try. So much shorter.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Mission Bay one.
Well, let's go, dude.
Yeah.
If you do it, I'll do it. If you do it,
it'll be my first. I've never done a try. So, but yeah, so a couple different climbs. Business wise, we're looking to shore up the deal with the airport here in San Diego to 2028. So having a white rice within the airport. And then just making sure the kid's good at college and just life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know college is a big thing. It goes by really fast. I think just as long as we continue to have that conversation with our kids about just being passionate about what they do, I think they'll be okay. Right?
Yeah.
And things change, right? You get to the end of it and be like, that's not really what I want to do. I want to do something else. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last question, and this is something that we ask all of our guests, is at this stage in your life, kids going to college, starting new business ventures, still chasing mountains, right? Mountain peaks. What does the long game mean to you?
That's actually something I've been planning like the last couple of months. Right? Because a lot of people look at like what's the means to the end, right? Like, do I want to continue white rice till I die? Like, I don't know, right? And that'll evolve and answer itself over the time. I want to continue to do the things that I love, right? And how do you maintain that, right? If you look at the idea of the blue zones, it's just ultimately it's just those people that never stop doing the
Yeah.
things they loved, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how many friends do we have that are like, we used to snowboard with, and then now they don't snowboard because they're like, oh, it got too heavy, and like, the kids and life, it's like, this is why you're sad. It's because you stopped, you stopped like cycling, you stopped running, you stopped playing sports, you stopped doing the things that you love. And so, the long game is just like maintaining my health, nutrition wise, physically wise, to, be able to do these things with my kids and their grandkids and enjoy the outdoors for forever,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And dude, it is a lot for me is about that legacy, right? I talk about Elijah doing a triathlon in a few weeks. He's doing the San Diego Tri Classic, and hopefully that's something that continues to get passed on. Now, my dad was not a triathlete, but he was very active, right? I remember him working out every day. His passion was basketball, so that got passed on to me. And hopefully, what we do continues to get passed on, not just the things that we've done professionally, but also the way that we live our life, right? With kindness and passion for just being outside and being outdoors. Earlier you were talking about not growing up as a climber. Both of us grew up in Paradise Hills, and I remember Paradise Hills is just a suburb, but there were canyons within Paradise Hills where I was like, at 5 or 6 years old, I'm like, let's go for an adventure. And we were just in the little canyon, right? Like playing in the woods and jumping creeks with our BMX bikes, right? So we grew up with a sense of adventure, and that is not as easily available to kids growing up now, right? You've got to find adventure, and which is kind of a shame, but here we are. So,
and I think it's just as important, right? Like with I do quite a bit in the outdoors, and I bring my kids to the outdoors and I expose them to it. And part of it too is that, one is hopefully one of those things will gravitate towards them, and they semi stick to it, right? Like the older one is more into like the cycling, but the younger one loves like rock climbing, right? But it's one of those things that, like, when they grow up and they get older, they go from like you as your parent needing them, and then they go into their like young adult phase where they want their separation from it, right? Create themselves, and then they come back into your life and then become like your best friends, right? So it's like these evolutions, and then you're hoping that these things that you expose them to connect you back, and you could do these things together, right? Like rock climbing with my youngest, cycling with the oldest, but also creating like respect and love for the outdoors, right? In a way. But all those the events, all the running events, all the mountain biking events, all the climbing events outdoors, it's just, we have to instill that into the new generation, right? Love and respect the outdoors.
No, I love that, man. Well, Eric, anything to close us out for our episode with Phil today?
No, Phil, I just want to say I appreciate your fearlessness. It inspires me. Every time we have these conversations, that's what I say. Now I'm going to hang up and go get after it.
Yo, right on. Me too, dude.
Yeah. I can't get after it quite yet. I've got to wait a couple hours. But yeah, guys, for those of you that got a chance to listen to this podcast, please go out and check out Base Kamp Meals. Phil, is continuing to create some really, really good flavors with Base Kamp, and stay tuned. There's more stuff to come. So for all you guys out there, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye.